This is the story of how maniacal ambition turns a vicious street thug into the Middle East's most aggressively violent dictator. His cruelty knows no limits. For 23 years, the sadistic tyrant Saddam Hussein rules Iraq with an utter contempt for humanity. The story begins in the village of Al-Ujah, 5 miles outside the Iraqi town of Tikrit.
No electricity, no paved roads, mud brick houses.
It's here, according to his mother, that the future dictatorial president of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, starts killing people before he's even born.
Saddam's mother said that she was carrying Satan in her belly and that he killed all the other men in the family, his father and his older brother, in order to be the only man in the family. Saddam's mother wanted to actually kill the fetus Saddam before he was even born.
Despite her wishes, he's born on April 28, 1937. Rejected by his mother, Saddam is sent to live with his uncle, Khairallah Talfa.
This left a very, very deep imprint on his personality, that he could never count on anybody except for on himself.
His uncle is a Nazi sympathizer who later sets out his own political philosophies in a pamphlet called Three Whom God Should Not Have Created: Persians, Jews, and flies.
Khairallah Talfa was an anti-Semite to the bone.
Meanwhile, his oil-rich country, long dominated by the British Empire, is dealing with its own turmoil. And in 1958, General Abdul Karim Qasem leads a military coup to dethrone Iraq's puppet monarchy and drive out the British. Quickly, Qasem's regime is plagued by power struggles and dissent. Having joined the Ba'ath Party, a radical, secular nationalist movement a year earlier, Saddam eagerly supports its goals of taking over the country.
He joined the Ba'ath Party because it was the most activist political party in Iraq of the 1950s.
Their plans include assassinating General Qasem, and there's a young street thug named Saddam Hussein they think is just the man for the job. Despite being a very junior Ba'ath Party member, the 22-year-old's reputation for enjoying violence gets him a place in the hit squad. In the mayhem, Saddam is shot by one of his fellow assassins, but manages to flee the scene.
It was a real farce.
General Qasem survives. It looks like Saddam's career in the Ba'ath Party has ended in failure before it's even begun. A wanted man, he goes on the run. 4 years later, where he spectacularly failed, other Ba'athists succeed. In 1963, General Qasem is deposed and executed. Saddam returns home from exile, itching for political office. But he's seen as a thug, and no one thinks of him as a leader. So he's only offered a junior role working with Iraqi peasants. Then, in July 1968, his luck changes. His distant relative and senior Ba'ath Party member, General Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, seizes power in a coup.
Saddam looked up to al-Bakr, and al-Bakr looked at Saddam very favorably, almost like a son.
Al-Bakr needs to appoint a head of security services to protect his new regime from counter-coups.
His colleagues, older, much better educated, longer membership period, they felt it was below them to pull out teeth and to pull out fingernails.
Young Saddam, on the other hand, has a quality that makes him only too happy to take on the role.
Sadism was one of the chief features of his personality. Saddam Hussein was probably more sadistic than Hitler, and that does mean to take great pleasure in the pain or suffering of others, and amusement in the pain and suffering of others.
Al-Bakr has no idea that he's just given a sick and twisted man a free pass to create a complete terror apparatus, an organization that ultimately proves vital to Saddam seizing total power.
He recruited all the people from his own tribe, young men who were very tough, not very much educated, but tough, knew how to use weapons, trained them, and they became like his puppies. They were eating from his hand. And they called him Amnat Shabir, our grand uncle. And they knew that all the good things they get, and they got a lot of good things. Money, cars, homes, you name it, they got it. And they were village boys. So for them it was like a quantum leap of incredible proportion.
Unlike other would-be dictators, Saddam personally enjoys inflicting pain. His torture chamber becomes infamous.
The name of the place was the Palace of Doom.
Here he regularly takes part in torture and has great delight in coming up with a range of cruel and unusual techniques. Over the next decade, he revels in perfecting 107 different methods. He does his job so well, General al-Bakr makes Saddam his vice president. By 1968, Saddam Hussein, unwanted by his mother, unsuccessful assassin, and unstoppable sadist, is just a heartbeat away from ruling Iraq, with his security service quietly weeding out opponents. And as the public face of popular reform, over the next 10 years, Saddam's power base grows and grows.
By the mid-70s is by far the most important figure in Iraq, even if formally he's only the vice president.
Confident he's done enough to prove his credentials as a leader, Saddam sets in motion the next phase in his bid for ultimate power. Little by little, he starts undermining his mentor and boss, President al-Bakr. Finally, in July 1979, he decides the time is right to achieve his destiny. On the eve of the annual celebrations, Saddam makes the president an offer he can't refuse. Resign or else. Saddam accompanies al-Bakr to make his televised resignation speech. At only 42 years old, Saddam Hussein is now president of Iraq. 6 days later, the new president calls a special meeting of senior Ba'ath Party members, which he records. This is the actual footage of what is one of the most notorious events of Saddam's reign.
People are invited to the Congress without knowing what is on the agenda. It starts with Saddam announcing that something very sad and tragic happened.
He claims he's uncovered a conspiracy against him. He then introduces senior Ba'ath Party member Muhi Abdal Hussein Mashadi, the man Saddam claims is the plot's ringleader.
You can actually see how frightened he is when he starts telling the story of the conspiracy.
Mashhadani was simply promised his life in exchange for mentioning the names.
Mashadi starts naming names. His fellow conspirators, he says, are in this very room.
Members of the security services, now under Saddam Hussein's step-brother Barzana Tikriti, take them out.
10 men are removed. Then another 10. Then another 10.
That fear that he evoked from these people, he enjoyed.
Then 10 more.
He sat back, smiled, smoked his cigar, and he was thrilled. He was enjoying the power, and he knew that now he was going to have unrivaled power. Those left, they had one choice, and that is to be loyalist, extreme loyalist, and to pledge their fealty to Saddam Hussein.
In total, 66 alleged traitors are removed. A third are executed by firing squad. In just a couple of hours, Saddam Hussein eliminates any traces of political opposition. He has achieved total power.